author Stuart W.R. Ramon Fortune. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very interested in this conversation because I feel as though it has brought up so many things in our beautiful twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about colonial history, we're talking about national instruments, we're talking about national emblems and symbols, right? In your opinion, how important is it, firstly, for us to even consider removing or changing the coat of arms?
Well, I think it's very important. I think it's something that should have been done a while ago, I would say decades ago. Something people have been advocating for, just never really got traction. Now I think there's no better time than now. You know, people may say that they'll have expenses and they'll have so many complications with the changeover, but no matter when you do it, those things will arise. So why put it off because of those issues? You know, I think the Steelpan is topical right now as well, meaning that it's a national instrument. We have the World Steelpan Day. We have all these different things promoting this, celebrating, not promoting, celebrating the Steelpan, because the pan itself promotes itself globally.
Right.
You know, so why not now?
But what does it do to have the pan on the coat of arms?
Okay, well, let me take it from a business. I'll put on my business cap for this, my consultant cap, sure. Right? When you're branding, you want to make sure you take control of the narrative. You want to make sure the narrative is true. You want to make sure it's coherent. If anyone thinks about Trinidad, one of the first things to think about is Carnival, Steelpan, the culture of Trinidad. They don't think about Columbus. I don't think anyone ever thinks about Columbus when you ask them about Trinidad. I don't think anyone thinks about three ships when they think about Trinidad. The main thing to think about is, well, one of the main things to think about is the culture, which is the Carnival, the Steelpan. You know,
the oil.
Well, that's
cricket.
Right.
But this is my point, right? They have so many different things that we can identify on the international stage that have made an impact, right?
But which one do we own that no one can replicate, that is difficult to imitate? Anyone, well, Afghanistan, India, even America could celebrate that they're doing cricket now. You know, it's too easy to copy. In terms of branding yourself, well, in this case as a nation, you want something that no one else could really identify with. Trinidad, the Steelpan, no one else can identify with the Steelpan. Even if people may say it's made in China as well, it's made in America as well, but according to the geographical indicators that has been assigned to Trinidad, if you buy one from China, it's a imitation.
Right.
It's not the real thing. So if you want a Steelpan, you have to buy one from Trinidad. So it's a very, very broad topic. You know, a lot of people have their passions, a lot of people have their concerns and so, but I think it's a move in the right direction. And expect for children coming up, not us, I see gray in your beard, look at my hair, but the younger generation, they will have something else to look at growing up. When they're in primary school, they have a different aspiration, a different vision of what we are.
So here's my challenge, right? And I'm only, it's not that I disagree, but I'm challenging it only based on when you're in school. I mean, you learn history, a particular version of history.
Right.
That seems to, I mean, yeah, they tell you about the Caribs and the Arawaks, and then they came and, Columbus discovered Trinidad. I mean, according to Shadow, Columbus lied, right?
Yes.
But if we aren't focused on giving the proper education, does it matter what's on the coat of arms?
Well, based on what you just asked there, people think that the coat of arms all of a sudden is Thanos' gauntlet. So, you know, snap of the finger will disappear. So if you remove the ships, all of a sudden will just disappear into the wind, because it means that we erase our history and we're no longer here. And it's about what we want to promote going forward.
Right.
How you want to position our brand as a country. I mean, again, I will say this, letting you know that I've never spoken to anyone in government about this. This is my view. This is not the government's view. I have no idea what their view is.
Right.
From a business consultant perspective in branding, you really want to encompass and promote the best version of yourself to the world. Again, take control of the narrative. Make sure it's true. Make sure it's coherent with what everyone else. When Jay-Z came out to Trinidad, he did a song with the Steelpan. Right?
I feel like that's a horrible, horrible example.
No, I'm just saying that the first thing they think about, they won't come to Trinidad and say, well, I'm not talking about just Jay-Z, I'm talking about anyone who comes to Trinidad, they want to incorporate the local instrument, which is the Steelpan. So globally known. Why can't we accept what is ours, what we created ourselves out of nothing? I mean,
but we've accepted it, right? It's a national instrument.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. We've accepted it. We celebrated and we went to the UN and said, hey, we want World Steelpan Day. And they said, yeah, no problem. Let's do World Steelpan Day. So
Right.
we have that. We celebrated all month long. We have the biggest panorama festival in the world here in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's not like there's any shortage of celebration for the national instrument.
Correct.
You understand? So my question to you is, I am less focused on branding and more focused on national identity. How does it help or hurt the national identity?
Well, okay, well, let me go. Let me ask you a question. You could finish a sentence for me? The British flag came down,
The
Trinidad
Union Jack
flag
came down,
went up, and the national anthem was played on the
I assume the partner was
on
there,
the steel
but,
pan, right? So there's nothing strong in terms of our national identity than the steel pan from ever since.
Right.
And when you look at how we developed as a country, I'll reference my book. When we came out of slavery, people might say we never came out of slavery, but after the emancipation came about, there was this battle of who's going to control the culture, shape the culture of the island moving forward, the former slave master or the former slave. That battle created the steel pan. Well, it created many different things before the steel pan, which the tambo bamboo and all of these different movements that pushed what we now know to be the steel pan, right? So if you're talking culture, if you're talking history, if you're talking about what is real to us as a Trinidad people, that is the most real thing in our whole island in terms of culture. If you look at the carnival, people say carnival dying, but carnival not dying, pretty much, these things with no substance, these things with no souls dying. But if you look at the panorama, that was the most powerful platform for the whole carnival. The panorama was the most vibrant, the most energetic out of all of the events because that has the soul. That's where everything stemmed from. You know, that spiritual resistance that we go in and represent our culture no matter what. Again, go back to the emancipation, being able to express your culture. You have that emancipation, you have that right as well. So it's a very, I would say again, it's a very broad topic. It's a topic that people don't really understand too much in terms of the history and how these things developed. Because the Steelpan didn't play national anthem on our first independence just by chance. It wasn't just by chance. That is what the Steelpan, when we went to Taspo, when Taspo went to Britain in 1951, and they weren't getting any funds from the government to support that trip, they did a whole fundraising effort throughout the whole country, and that's the first time everyone came together behind the cause, Trinity cause. All the communities which were previously silos, Indian silo, Chinese silo, African silo, Syrian silo, all of them came together behind this one cause which was bigger than any one silo. At that unity is what was able to propel Passport to go to Britain in 1951, get that big international support and, you know, blow everyone's mind across the world. And when they came back, now, when the Steelpan hit the road, there were thousands and thousands of people. Before Tambo Bamboo would attract the crowd, but nothing like what a steel band would attract. That steel band hitting the road with those thousands of people showed the members, the players, the people on the street that we have power, because it was really unpoliceable crowds on the street. And through that identity being formed, that was then leverage for independence. So Steelpan played, the anthem was played on the Steelpan because of all of that history. So if you're asking about what best represents our history and our culture, and so there's nothing better than the Steelpan.
Right. Now, one of the things that Steelpan also represents is that power of resistance that you spoke about, right?
Yes.
But that resistance was seen in a negative light by many in society. So let me be real. People used to get locked up for Steelpan. People used to get beaten for Steelpan. There was lots of resistance when it comes to not just people resisting with the Steelpan, but people resisting against the Steelpan.
Yes.
And a lot of people have inherited that view in terms of seeing the Steelpan as for a particular part of society. For the ruffians, for the ones up on the hill, and for the this and for the that, and for certain parts of society. Now, of course, over the years, that would have evolved, and for it to become the national instrument, it had to be accepted by the powers that be. It had to be accepted by the majority of people. But some people still have that view of the instrument, especially some people might be older and saying, well, you know, I remember when they used to meet in the road and clash and fight and bottle pelting, and that's a dangerous activity. How do we encourage those people now to have that view of the Steelpan that is Trinbagonian,
well,
and all-encompassing?
That's a challenge that they have with them, their own selves, because you can't look at what was going on in the 60s, in the 70s, and so, and then look at what's going on now and think it's the same thing.
But you just did. You just went back to the 60s and said that Steelpan was played on the anthem was played on the national on Steelpan.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason why we should realize that it's all encompassing. You went back to Taspo just now and you say that's part of the reason why it should be all encompassing. That same back in time was also the resistance, was also the fight. So how can you say that you can look at one but you can't look at the next one?
Again, after the emancipation, there was this battle.
Right.
Who want to dominate the culture? So you have to answer who had those reservations and why they had those reservations in the first place. Right? Some of them may have been antiquated in their thinking. Yes, there was a lot of violence in the Steelpan, but in anything that is new, they will always have a lot of friction, a lot of battles back and forth until it streamlines itself and moves forward in the right direction. So again, that's why I said you can't look at how it was managed and the actions of those days and compare it to now where it's a lot more, you would say, civilized and a lot more professional, you know. It's a whole different industry right now. And for those people who have those antiquated ideas about the Steelpan, I'm really sorry, but that's something that they need to deal with on their own, in their own minds.
But that's what I'm saying, like, how do we encourage them? How do we encourage them to see the bigger picture, to see what it is now? How do we get that education out there?
Well, exactly what we're doing right now. For instance, I'll put back on my business consultancy cap. In any change, there will be a change cycle, a change curve that will exist. There's the status quo which existed up until 2 weeks ago or so. There was a change. After that change, there will always be resistance, then resignation, then evolution, and then full adoption into the new status quo. So there will always be resistance whenever there's a change. What we're doing right now is what needs to be done when there's a change. You need to educate the people, explain to them, assure some of their fears, discuss the issue with them so they understand. You kind of have to hold their hand so that they could understand, okay, well, yes, this really could benefit us. And that's what we're doing right now. We're having this conversation to try to edify them and make them understand, well, the history of the Steelpan. I hear a lot of people talking about the different instruments, the danta, the tassa, and all of these things, but you need to understand why the Steelpan is so unique. It's the thing that we created, the one instrument created in the last century.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to even join the conversation about whether we should be having another instrument or whatever the case. That to me is irrelevant. Right. What for me is more relevant is the idea of removing the colonial aspects of our history in terms of saying, all right, we're removing the chips from the coat of arms, but what else are we changing? What else should we be changing?
Well, firstly, we need to change our minds. All right.
But then should we be change the name of the country back to Airi? Because Columbus called me Trinidad and Tobago.
I am not the leader of the country.
No, I'm asking your opinion. I'm not asking for you to do it.
Yes. So I will just discuss what has happened. Yes, there are a lot of different things that we could change. People say we could change the Queen's Park, Savannah. A lot of things. I mean, why not? We have the perfect example. We have a street in Port of Spain called the Neville Jewell Street, right? We have a street in Diego Martin called Wendy Fitzwilliams Boulevard, right?
We have Queen General Penny Young Street.
Exactly. So everything, another thing, things have to be done incrementally sometimes. You can't just say we're changing everything tomorrow. Or else you definitely will see a lot of resistance. You definitely will see a lot of challenges in terms of the logistics of it. So sometimes things have to be done incrementally so people could, be guided along with what changes need to occur. But yes, I am for any removal of the colonial past history. It's not as though we're removing the story, the history. You could still know the stories. It will still be taught in secondary school history classes. And so it's not as though the history, again, it's not the gauntlet of time where because it's removed, all of these things never occurred.
Right.
In fact, when they're talking about teaching the Steelpan, you're teaching more about the history, about the whole colonial past than having 3 ships on the coat of arms. If anyone wants to dig into that Steelpan history, you're getting a broader,
of course,
spectrum.
So to sum it up, you agree with the changes?
I agree with anything to promote the Steelpan on an international scale. Putting it on the coat of arms, I have no problem with that. I am 120% behind that.
Nice. Well, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us this morning and having this conversation. And do enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, sir.